Hey minions, welcome to Crank It Up. I'm Jim Price, and on this episode of King of the Hill, I want to talk about the Venus Mantrap of the Killer Plants. I've mentioned before how much I like the Killer Plants, but how I feel they are not self-synergistic, and the Venus Mantrap is an example of that. The Venus Mantrap has a talent to search your deck for a minion of power 2 or less and play it here as an extra minion. On paper, this sounds like a really good ability, and it is, but it also has its shortcomings. This sounds like it would work well for sprouts, but it doesn't because it's too slow. Not only must the sprout be played on the same base, but the sprout must die even if you have no minions to grab. From the killer plant perspective alone, sprouts are the only option, and sprouts can only grab water lilies, a minion you don't want 2 copies of at the same time. Therefore, the strength of the Venus Mantrap falls on your partner faction, but the geographic limitation here is still very restrictive because the killer plants have no movement. I find it annoying that weeds seem to have no problem spreading everywhere in my backyard, but they can only occupy a single base and smash up. Therefore, we have to consider what faction to pair with the killer plants in order to maximize this ability. In many ways, the Venus Mantrap has the opposite problem of the Zombie Lord, who must spread out the minions even if you don't want to. The Venus Mantrap forces you to consolidate on one base, which limits it as an engine card. You also have to consider that the minion is consumed completely, which is an issue for the killer plants who are effectively 4 minions short when their sprouts are destroyed. The Venus Mantrap thus also has the opposite problem of the Critter Champion, who cannot seem to keep minions on the base, making it harder to break that base. Spoiler alert, guess who we're looking at next week. There are a few archetypes that we can use as templates for a killer plant pairing. I always prefer my talent-based minions to be long-term engines, but they don't have to be. If you are just trying to break a base quickly, with as few minions as possible, you can consider a big drop pairing. 2 of my favorite pairings in this regard are the werewolves and the shapeshifters. The Howler makes for a great terminal talent play because instead of 2 power, you get 4. The problem is, Howlers played before this are pretty ineffective. Still, 9 power in a single turn is very good. You can wait a turn by playing a sprout to get a teenage wolf, then play a Howler with your regular minion and a Howler with your talent. With a teenage wolf talent and Venus Mantrap, that's 17 power before any action, and Frenzy can bring it up to 21, which can break a number of bases, hopefully by yourself. I prefer a slightly different tactic with the shapeshifters, who can also be minion starved. You can lead with a Mimic, which may or may not have any power on a base if it's the only minion in play. It's more likely that it has nominal power, which is okay. Then, on your next turn, you can play the Venus Mantrap and another minion to create 15 power on a base, and Genetic Shift can be your action. This way, you don't have to commit your Venus Mantrap to a base until the last moment. You can also use the War Raptor similarly, but it's not as fun. As I mentioned before, I like engines a lot more than big drops, but that isn't always possible. Opponents know that this is a good ability, and because the minions you play are forced to be played on the same base, they will contribute to power creep. It's possible that your engine may end early because that base will break quickly. So I often find movement paradigms to be helpful, where the minions I get don't have to remain on the same base. These factions will have crossover with the Zombie Lord because it solves the same problem, just to a different goal. So the first mates are once again a good choice. Not only can they survive the base breaking, but the pirates also have movement actions. For the steampunks, Captain Ahab can move themselves to another base with an action, which doesn't even have to be their final destination since they can move again next turn. But I like to be creative, and the killer plants can create other interesting opportunities. You can grab the Dust Devil of the Tornadoes, which can move to a base before it scores. But this does add to the power creep at the current base, which is where Overgrowth can be used. You can play Overgrowth on a different base, forcing your opponents to frantically try to pile onto that base to get something. Since your Dust Devils can move there before it scores, you can still contribute power to that base, but you don't have to. You can continue to add power to the Venus Mantrap base, knowing that you have Dust Devils that you can use as tiebreakers, particularly if you have picked up in your hand, which might remove the only minion a player has on a base. Worst case scenario, the tornadoes have plenty of movement actions in case you want to start over on another base. Power creep will definitely factor into the mild-mannered citizen strategy. While the superheroes do have minion recycling which helps with starvation, you won't be able to extract much value from the Venus Mantrap if you break its base too quickly. If you grab a mild-mannered citizen with the Venus Mantrap, I recommend grabbing the burst, then playing your regular minion on another base to move the burst off. This is one of the ways to help create a 2-base combo with Justice Friends, which works even better with the killer plants because the weed eaters are potentially in range. I used to like this combo a lot several years ago, and it does work, but I prefer other options better. Another paradigm is to solve the minion starvation problem. Any jumpers that you use will go back to your hand when the base breaks, setting up a future Blossom play. Potentially, you can play all 4 jumpers if you use your regular minion play as well, and you get them back again after that base breaks. Similarly, you can use the Venus Mantrap to pull locals from your deck, which can net you more locals. If you have Sacred Circle on another base, you can use any locals obtained by Venus Mantrap on the Sacred Circle base, progressing on 2 fronts and preparing a Deep One's burst. But maybe you don't even care about breaking a base at all. Killer Plant Aliens is one of the most powerful combinations in the game, and while I don't want to go into too many details here because there are several combos that they have, Venus Mantrap is one of them. Venus Mantrap essentially gives you 4 more beam ups for your invaders, which can be grabbed by the sprouts. You can play an invader with your regular minion, then use the Venus Mantrap to play a collector, returning the invader to your hand. I don't think you need any more ways to spam the invader, but you have them anyway. You can use your normal beam ups to slow down opponents, giving you more time for invader spamming. There are a few more combos that stand out uniquely. The Venus Mantrap allows you to take advantage of printed power nuance like we saw with the Mimic, which you can also see with the giant ants. The soldier only has 1 printed power, but 3 total power in the form of 2 counters. You can use the Venus Mantrap to summon the soldiers, then use their talents to transfer the power over to another base. This can help consolidate power counters on one minion, increasing the effectiveness of We Are the Champions, while also reducing the power creep on the Venus Mantrap base. Because a kind of magic lets you freely transfer these power counters among your minions, no opponent will know your true base target. The final combo combines many of the aforementioned concepts, and that's the Magical Girls. The black and white Magic Hats can get their respective minions, while Lunar Captain can help with minion starvation. If you play the 2 king minions on different bases, Power Maid can shuffle the minions between the 2, as can potentially Walking Castle. You can use the Venus Mantrap to summon many minions to a base, use Bewitching Gal to reduce the breakpoint of that base, then use movement talents or actions in order to get your minions onto another one. Like Aliens, there are a few more combinations here for you to discover, but the Venus Mantrap combo combines aspects of the movement, big drop, and minion retention paradigms for a consistent attack. As you can see, the Venus Mantrap isn't interesting for its own faction, but definitely for its partner faction. There are many ways to use its talent, ways that will seem unique and different from the ways to use the Critter Champion, which we'll explore next week. What's your favorite way to use the Venus Mantrap? Let me know in the comments. That's it for this week. Thanks for watching. Be sure to like and subscribe. Let's shut it down.